Yo, what's up? My name's Patrouski, and I've been playing PokeMMO for over 12 years and have over 10,000 hours if you include my alt accounts. And with those hours, I have played many event seasons in PokeMMO, and I understand that one of the most important things when it comes to succeeding in event seasons is the preparation. Now, this video is going to be acting a lot like a glossary with a ton of links in the video description, linking you to all the other guides and resources that I've made over the years. But there will be some new stuff in here as well if you're trying to learn event season for the very first time, or you're looking for updated information specifically relevant for 2025. However, I think with the style of video I'm making, this actually might be relevant for years to come and might be relevant to look back on for every single event in the upcoming year in 2025, as well as maybe even in the future in 2026 or 2027. A lot of event season comes down to checking what happened last year and sort of making references and having an idea of what the event season looks like and how you can prepare for the same thing to reoccur. And that brings us to one of the most important things when it comes to event season. Everything, absolutely everything is subject to change. Like I'm talking about, the events could not even happen. Now that's only happened, I believe, once in Pokemon history. At one point, the Christmas event was actually canceled. It's very rare, but it does happen. And sometimes events also can be delayed. That is somewhat common. You see, in PokeMMO, the developers never tell us for sure that the events are coming up. We kind of just know because historically, they happen every single year. We usually get a Halloween event on Halloween, aka October 31st. We usually get a Christmas or winter event on December 25th. Usually December 26th, if I'm being honest, and then we get a Lunar New Year event on the day that the Lunar New Year drops, which is different every year. For example, the Lunar New Year event this year should be happening on February 17th in 2026. Which means that if the Christmas event lasts 2 weeks or so, which is the average event runtime, it lasts 2 weeks, starts on December 26th, and let's say ends on something like January 10th, for example, that only leaves you with 37 days to then prepare for the Lunar New Year event. That is not a lot of time to get all the raid Pokemon, all the Pokeyen you may need, etc., which is why it's so important to try to prepare for all 3 of the events prior to event season starting. Once the season starts, it's really difficult to catch up or prepare things you're behind on. Now, I know that I've explained the basics, but if you're still asking yourself, what is event season? I'll have a guide linked in the description that talks a lot more in depth and goes over the items as well and different rewards you can see during event season. But one of the most basic rewards you'll see in most event season is something called sealed products and then vanities or loose items from those sealed products. What a sealed product refers to is something like a lucky red envelope. These are essentially loot packs or loot crates or trading card packs, whatever you want to call them, that you essentially buy or earn during the event and then open up for a chance at a reward. This is gambling, and I don't recommend it if you want to make consistent profits. But if you want to have a little bit of fun, spend to your heart's content as long as you're doing so responsibly. In terms of sealed product, during the Halloween event, you have the goodie bag as well as the pumpkin goodie bag of different varieties. For the Christmas event, you have the Xmas presents and then the Santa presents. And then for the Lunar New Year events, you have the red envelopes and the lucky red envelopes. And here in my box or my bag on my main account, you can see an example of what some investments might look like on a veteran style account. You can see I have tons of different red envelopes from different years, tons of different lucky reds, tons of different random little things, mysterious balls. We'll get to those in a quick bit. Xmas presents, Santa presents, goodie bags, etc. I have a lot of experience with event seasons and investing. But that is sealed product overviewed, and you also have a chance to get the vanities from these things, and the vanities will vary. You'll see a lot of cheap vanities for hundreds of Pokeyen or thousands of Pokeyen or whatever, but there's also the ultra rare vanities, and it's kind of a known thing within the community that for some reason the Lunar New Year event ultra rare vanity is generally rarer than the other ones. So we can see here the coiled snake hat. This was last year's ultra rare item. You can see as you hover over the vanity, it says ultra rare event item at the bottom. This thing is currently going for 27 million Pokeyen, which is quite extravagant. There's also the White Rabbit plush from the 2023 Lunar New Year event. This is a 60 million Pokeyen ultra rare vanity. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Look at this ultra rare vanity from the 10th anniversary event in PokeMMO. This thing's only worth 820,000 Pokeyen, sadly. Just some food for thought and something to factor in if you want to make loose or vanity investments during the event season. Sealed product is always safer. Vanities are risky. All right, but that's some of the basic stuff covered. Let's go ahead and get into the general preparation for the event season. I have 5 things that I want to mention here, and then we'll move into the specific events themselves, like the Halloween event, the Christmas event, and the Lunar New Year event. First things first, really basic general thing, but tip number 1 is make sure you have as many regions done as possible. People ask me all the time, how many regions should I have done? Is it okay if I have 1 done? It is okay. You will be able to do a fair bit of the content, but you might not be able to do all of the content, and you will be at a disadvantage. You want to get all 5 storylines done in PokeMMO before the event season, if at all possible. And it's also nice to have some basic utility Pokemon. These utility Pokemon should include things like basic catching Breloons with sustainability and Toxic Orb and Poison heal, your Gym Rerun Typhlosions, any HM friend Pokemon you may need, or Ocarinas, good PVM Pokemon like fast Garchomps, and then even a Soak spore catching Smeargle for certain ghost types or other Pokemon that are difficult to achieve. Next up, step number 2 is going to make sure you have as many raid Pokemon prepared as possible. However, you really only need about 12, maybe even 10 to 15 raid Pokemon to be able to do 90% of raids. If you're wondering what those Pokemon are in detail, or you've never done raids before, there is a very in-depth video linked in the description that is 2.5 hours long that shows you every single raid Pokemon you could possibly build in PokeMMO. Now, if that reasonably sounds overwhelming and you don't have 2.5 hours to learn about different niche raid Pokemon, I recommend just watching the 2 main teams talked about and timestamped in that video. There is team number 1, which is the Fire Raid Pokemon team, which usually rocks some Ninetales and other powerful fire types like Solar Power Charizard. And then there is the Fighting type team, which rocks things like also Darmanitan and Blaziken, which can also be in the Fire type team, but also things like Mienshao and Hitmonlee. All details and all extra information is in that video linked in the description, and it's very timestamped and thorough. Each holiday event nowadays in PokeMMO packs around 12 raids alongside it, and those raids are a massive part of the event content. If you aren't prepared for raids, you're missing out on a massive piece of the game. And also, I can't say how important it is to prepare your raid Pokemon now. It's going to be so much cheaper to build them now. Pokemon in general are so much less expensive right now. If I were to buy a 2x31 Chandelure in special attack and in speed and then modest nature, that's going to cost about 140,000 Pokeyen right now. I have seen this Pokemon, I kid you not, cost upwards of 800,000 Pokeyen during event season. People don't want to have to go farm Litwicks, catch Litwicks, XP train, EV train, and have to waste their time preparing these Pokemon when they could just be grinding the event for way more Pokeyen. I cannot stress enough how much preparation is the key to success in the PokeMMO event season. But next up, step number 3 is going to be boss Pokemon, and this mostly refers to the Pumpkin, which there will be a Pumpkin boss guide linked in the description in full, as well as my easy mode guide and a hard mode guide, thanks to Rumel, shout out to him. This is generally the team that is used for that, though. I can show you very, very quickly. It's a pretty simple team. You do want as good of stats on Pokemon as possible, but I've beaten the Pumpkin boss with this team over the years many, many times, and you might notice that my Crocodile is hardy nature and my Chandelure is docile. These are not good natures for these Pokemon. You would generally want to go plus special attack here and plus attack damage on the Crocodile, but these work. Let this be a reference that you don't need perfect Pokemon to be able to participate and do well in event season in PokeMMO. It's a pretty beginner-friendly event, honestly. You just have to be willing to put in the time and effort. All right, so here's our Chandelure. You want some decent stats, as you can see them here. I'm just going to scroll through everything. If you don't know, pretty basic EV training. You should go 2v2 special attack, 2v2 speed here. Ignore the HP EVs, but you want high attack, high speed. The bulk is mostly irrelevant. You should want some bulk on these mons. It's kind of nice. It can come up. And then for the move pools, that's the important thing. For your Typhlosion, a Gym Rerun Typhlosion just works. Eruption Typhlosion is fantastic. For Chandelure, you want Safeguard and Shadow Ball. And then for Crocodile, you want Assurance. For items, you're also going to want a Choice Specs for the Typhlosion, a Choice Band for the Crocodile, and then a Ghost Gem or a few Ghost Gems, usually for the Chandelure. You could also sometimes run the Ghost boosting items like the Spooky Plate or something like that if you need those. But Ghost Gem generally makes things a little more consistent from my experience. And that brings us to thing number 4, the general thing number 4 you will need to succeed in PokeMMO event season, and that is Pokeyen, just raw yen. You want to save up as much raw yen as possible for event season to have flexibility during the event itself. I recommend generally having at least 30 mil, but that's obviously a lot of Pokeyen. I have 51 mil in pure yen right now. I'm very comfortable with that heading into this event. Really, you want to just save up as much as you possibly can. And that's a big reason why the market prior to event seasons is quite slow, because people are saving up their raw yen to have them for these events, to be able to buy things they want, have fun, have flexibility, buy whatever raid Pokemon that come up that they didn't have access to. Being able to make investments is a massive one. Now, we're going to talk about investments a little bit here, but keep in mind, if you want to make investments in PokeMMO, it's like the best way to make insane amounts of wealth. If you want to ever become 100 millionaire or multiple hundreds of million Pokeyen or a billionaire in PokeMMO, you need to make investments. It is the easiest, freest, best way to make Pokeyen. It's never guaranteed. There is always risk. If anybody ever tells you, hey, you will always make profit buying this item as an investment, you should be very skeptical of them. There's always risk, but there are certain items that are generally much safer than others. Sealed product, things like those goodie bags, things like mysterious balls. I have made hundreds of millions of Pokeyen investing in mysterious balls, and every time I spread more information about that, my profit margins will shrink and shrink and shrink, but it will also spread, and you guys will have a chance to make some sick profit on those as well. But it's really important to buy them at the bottom out price, and this goes into a whole longer spiel of the event market. There will be a video linked in the description that explains the general, not always, but the general vibe and the general flow of the event season market, and it's very, very important. I talk about concepts like not buying anything during the first 3 days of the event and actually selling everything. I talk about when to look for that bottom out price and how to play around the bottom out, how to like see where the bottom out price is. Investing is worthless if you buy at high prices and don't actually buy items at the lowest price point possible. But once again, if you want more details on that, it will all be linked in the description. Next up is legendary Pokemon, a fan favorite, something a lot of people love, okay? There are different legendaries that come out with different events. As you can see, I have an Alpha Suicune. I have 3 different Shaymins from different Lunar New Year events, as well as a Jirachi. These are all event season specific legendary Pokemon that can only be achieved during these limited times. If you ever want an OT of these Pokemon, you gotta do it during this upcoming event season. Now, there is also the Darkrai Summoning Orb. This summons Darkrai. Let me go ahead and show you guys actually what that looks like. You usually click spawn. He can spawn for a limited amount of time, 1 or 2 hours, depending on how many times you've actually respawned him. And he looks like this. This is Darkrai. So it's a weird Pokemon. No legendary operates the way that Darkrai does. Darkrai is a unique Pokemon in this aspect. He is an uber tier Pokemon, so he's not usable in PvP. He's very, very powerful. He was meta during one raid, I believe the Slacking raid in the history of PokeMMO. He was one of the most controversial updates, fun fact, in PokeMMO history. People were not a fan of being able to not permanently own the Pokemon, which is honestly understandable when the motto is you gotta catch them all. But he is a raid boss Pokemon. You essentially do the 12 raids of Halloween, and then you have the opportunity to do the Darkrai raid. And if you do that, you will have a chance to catch him. So during the Halloween event, we've had the Darkrai raid in the past, and then during the Christmas event, we have had the Alpha Legendary raid. We had Suicune last year, and the devs confirmed that Alpha Suicune would return in the future, but they didn't qualify whether it would be during this event season or due to something else. It's very, very possible they do a different Alpha raid this year, so just keep an eye out for that. I'd be shocked if they just bring back Alpha Suicune. I bet you it's a different Alpha Legendary. Jirachi was also added to the game for the first time as of last year, and this came out during the Christmas event as well, so keep an eye out for that. That was the reward for completing all of the 12 event raids in the Christmas event. And then you have Shaymin, which is from the Lunar New Year event, and you can do this after defeating all 12 raids, and you have to defeat it as a raid as well. And you can even unlock Skyform Shaymin on it, but once again, you cannot use Skyform Shaymin in PvP. It is banned from PvP as it is considered to be way too powerful in PokeMMO specifically. Now, you have to factor in all of that on top of any possible new legendaries. They have been consistently adding new legendaries to PokeMMO over the past few years, every single event season, so keep your eyes peeled. I think there is a really good chance, about a 90% chance at my guesstimate, that we see new legendary Pokemon added to the game this year. All right, but that is the fifth and final tip for the general preparation and general stuff. We're going to start moving into more specific stuff, and most of this is going to be slight rambles alongside links in the description. Once again, most of this is just a glossary linking you guys to other resources that already cover the details of these events in a lot more detail, and actually show visuals because these guides took place during the events themselves. I actually do a playlist on YouTube for every single event every single year. So for example, you can go watch the 2024 Halloween, 2024 Christmas, and 2025 Lunar New Year event full playlist with all the guides and resources from last year right now if you want to. And those will be linked in the description and referenced from this point forward quite often. All right, but now we move on to the Halloween event preparation, which once again, this is mostly going to be referencing links in the description. Check everything and check timestamps if you want to go through things individually. Now, first things first, the Halloween event is generally, on average, the worst event for investments historically. Now, this is not always the case and not always guaranteed. For example, a lot of people actually made some insanely good bank and good Pokeyen on the Shadow Bone Club, an ultra rare vanity from 2022, which is now 30 million Pokeyen. But then right above it, you see the Shadow Skull Helmet, which is also an ultra rare vanity from 2022 that is only 600,000 Pokeyen. And then we see the Shadow Cape right above it as well, which is at currently 4.7 million Pokeyen, and this was like 8 to 12 mil during the event. So this has lost money as well. That's from the ultra rare 2024 Halloween item. And as someone who's invested in a lot of the goodie bags and pumpkin goodie bags from these events, there's a reason I'm kind of holding on to them. They have not brought back the most profit over the years. They weren't bad, but there's other investments that could do a lot better. I think I still like doubled my money, honestly, on a fair bit of these, but if I were just in Mysterious Balls or Lucky Reds or something else, I could have done a lot better. All right, but the first order of actual content in the Halloween event, we already covered it to some extent, but the Pumpkin Boss. Now, the Pumpkin Boss is really important to get a limited vanity. Every single year, there is a limited vanity that is untradeable. That's the important thing when it comes to the Pumpkin Boss. Every single vanity you get from this is untradeable, so you have to actually do the fight. So, for example, here's the Paladin's Shield from 2022. You could only get this vanity by defeating the Pumpkin on easy mode in that specific event year. If you didn't play during that year, you can never get this ever again. You also have the Clown Mask from a similar thing in 2023. My easy mode pumpkin boss guide will be linked in the description. I've been using that same strategy for years, and there's also a hard mode pumpkin guide linked in the description as well. Now, there's a ton of other stuff you can do during the Halloween event, like farming wisps and going for just tons of swarm Pokemon, doing mysterious balls. All of that will be linked in the description. I have a perfectly created, wrapped up guide video for this one specifically. I didn't do this for every year, unfortunately, but I do have this guide for the Halloween event. I have a video called Everything You Can Do in the Halloween event, and it is a little step-by-step guide that goes through everything. And obviously, if anything changes this year, I'll have to make an updated guide, and if I haven't said it already, I will be doing updated guides per event when they actually release. This is just a preparation guide. When the Halloween event actually comes out this year, I'll do a lot more content, a lot more guides covering how you actually play, like what actually is for sure out, right? But this is just what you can do to prepare. But if you watch anything for the Halloween stuff, I strongly recommend the Everything You Can Do in the Halloween event. I think it gives a really, really nice overview of the event itself. And then the Halloween 2024 event playlist, once again, will also be linked in the description. That is very important. And I think that's pretty much it for Halloween. As long as you guys go through and check out the playlist linked in the description, that is most of the things you need to prepare. I'm going to go ahead and head over to a nice little Christmas location now. All right, now for the Christmas event coming up in PokeMMO, the Christmas event, the winter event, whatever you want to call it, whatever puts a smile on your face. I really don't mind either way. All right, so we have the Christmas 2024 event playlist, which once again covers everything available to do in that event, all linked in the description. These playlists also include every single raid. So if you really want to go through each 12 raids and prepare for each one individually, I don't think you need to do that. If you just prepare a fire team and a fighting team, you'll probably be good. But if you want to see the niche outliers, there is every single raid completed in that event. There's probably, I think, over 50 videos per event playlist. Once again, all linked in the description. And then next step, I actually want to talk about something very exciting, very interesting, and very important. It is possible that we see elf bots return this year. I think that this is something that a lot of people forgot about, and kind of it just slipped our minds because so much happened. Now, there is a video covering this in more detail, covering the full forum post linked in the description if you're interested in that. But essentially, if you don't know, the elf bot is sort of a cooperative dungeon style mini game or big raid PvM piece of content in PokeMMO that existed for many years, and it's what brought the elf bot vanities all into the game. Now, people were asking Q and the developers, hey, I missed the elf bots. What happened to them? And Q confirmed, quote from Q, he said, I agree, and I'd like to revisit them next year. This was posted on December 25th, 2024. Shout out to Q for literally working on Christmas. What a king. He says, in previous years, we've received large amounts of negative feedback due to the lack of casual focused gameplay, hence why we began expanding events in that direction. For this year, the Elfbot incident required too much technical attention, so it was scrapped early on. We felt that heat trend was a more important feature to work on. This all made sense, but I thought it was really interesting. A lot of people are sleeping on the fact that we might see Elfbots return, a fan favorite, beloved part of the Christmas event that has been away from the game for many, many years. I know that people have forgotten about this because I forgot about this until I went through my Christmas playlist from last year. This is why going through these event playlists is so important. Even the person who made these videos is forgetting extra details and pieces of information. That's how complicated and how busy event season gets. And then next up, we already talked about it to some extent, but Alpha Suicune / the chance of an Alpha Legendary Raid. Now, this is a tough one. How do you prepare for an Alpha Legendary Raid if you don't know what it's going to be? It's really tough. There is a Suicune guide from last year. You needed a specific team for this one, like a dry skin Jinx, I believe. There's a lot of specific strategy actually involved with this fight. It was a very, very difficult fight. One of the toughest ones I've ever done during an event season. This Alpha Suicune raid took me 3 hours, and that was with coaching over voice calls on Discord. It was a very, very, very difficult fight that a lot of players weren't able to complete. But there is a video linked in the description with more details on that and sort of the preparation and the event itself. If you want to see my Suicune fight, it should be linked in the Christmas event playlist as well. All right, but now it is time for the third and final event to cover, the Lunar New Year event in PokeMMO. Now, if you don't know, the Lunar New Year event is actually generally the best event for investments because a lot of players burn out by this event or don't have funds left over due to poor budgeting. This is why I recommended that 30 million Pokeyen starting funds, and it's important to budget prior to the events starting. I always recommend separating 10 million Pokeyen for the Halloween event, 10 mil for the Christmas event, and then 10 mil for the Lunar New Year event. And you'll also make Pokeyen along the way and kind of gather items passively. So there's a lot to consider there. But due to players burning out, due to poor budgeting, and also the fact that there's a really high interest in demand for a lot of the items and vanities from the Lunar New Year events, because the player base in China is really, really large for PokeMMO. This ends up making a lot of these items really good investments and really gathering some value over the years, except for the Golden Tiger Mask. As you can see, this is not always the case. But I love showing off like the Lucky Red envelopes. These have gained in price dramatically. I have made insane profits on these from previous years. Look at this one, the 2023 Lucky Red envelope being 500k an envelope is ridiculous. When I was showing you guys those super rare, ultra rares earlier, most of these are from the Lunar New Year events, the Coiled Snake, the White Rabbit plush. This event has consistently and historically just has some insane items get really, really expensive. But like all the other events, the Lunar New Year event full playlist will be linked in the description, and it is a very important one. Now, something else comes alongside the Lunar New Year event. During the Lunar New Year event, you have something called the Abundant Shrine, which is a mini-game or dungeon type activity where you go and select a Pokemon and you become that Pokemon, taking on their typing, their moves, and trying to collect and gather items. Now, this is essentially a strategy tower defense type game where you're taking on waves after waves and trying to survive and get more prizes. The longer you last, the more bosses you defeat, the more rewards you'll end up getting, those rewards being the Lucky Red envelopes. Once again, more content and guides will come out on this when this event specifically drops, but here is me and my team fighting the Nyan boss of the event, which happens within the instance itself. You get teleported into this little area of the Abundant Shrine, and also there is a top 50 leaderboard for this event, where the people that make it the furthest in this sort of gauntlet challenge end up getting a limited vanity at the end of the event. And that limited vanity can look like this or like this, depending on how high you place on that leaderboard. Now, the Abundant Shrine dungeon might be the best moneymaker for players from scratch or new players during the entire event season. Last year, I created a fresh new account in PokeMMO called Lunar New Year Andy and was able to get up to the gym badge needed to start doing Abundant Shrine, and I was able to make 1 million Pokeyen in 2 days on a brand new account, and I could have done it in 1 if I just played more hours. If someone dares to utter the sentence, "Oh man, I was really looking forward to the PokeMMO event season, but it's just only for endgame players," you need to look that person in the face and tell them, Hey, you know what, man? Your feelings are valid, King, and PokeMMO is a really time-consuming and really high-effort game that isn't for everybody. It's especially tough when you work a 9-to-5 job and come home to family and have to cook dinner and put your kid down for bed, and then maybe have an hour or two at the end of the day to play a little PokeMMO. Everybody makes progress at different rates, and that's totally okay. However, having said that, PokeMMO is at a very equal playing field compared to most things in life. We're all born in Pallet Town here, and you can succeed too, as long as you believe in yourself. And I'm wishing you the best of luck, and if you have any questions or need any help, make sure to let me know. Or you could call them a noob and then say sit rat as you walk away with your millions of Pokeyen. But if you want to watch that full challenge, it is in the playlist for the Lunar New Year event videos. I ended up taking a new account, making 1,000,000 Pokeyen in 2 days, and then building a full raid team from scratch to do all the raids in the event within 6 days. Alright, but next order of business during the Lunar New Year event is going to be the Zodiac Tablets or Zodiac Masters. These are essentially just increasingly very difficult NPC double battles that reward a limited vanity like this, the Zodiac Tang. I'm just going to call it the Tang. I'm not going to try to say it. Apologies. The Zodiac Tang vanity after you complete all 12 or so of the battles. And they can be a little tough, but generally, as long as you have good PVM Pokemon, you will sweep through them. But a guide of all the Zodiac Master fights will be linked in the description. Alright, and then the final order of business to discuss is the possibility of Mew and Victini being added to PokeMMO this year. It was confirmed last year in 2024 by Rach saying, we have plans for Mew and Victini sometime in the future, but they won't be coming during this event. That was back in 2024. Darkrai will remain a summon. They kind of talked about that was being discussed back then, but this is confirmed. We will get Mew and Victini one day. At least they have plans for it. I think it's decently likely we see that this year. Once again, they've been wanting to add new legendaries and have added new legendary Pokemon consistently over the past few years. It makes total sense if they're planning for one of these two. I would keep an eye out for them during either one of the Halloween, Christmas, or Lunar New Year events. Now, these new Pokemon being added affects the market. It affects PvP. If you want to try to stock up on certain items, certain, TMs, things that might want to be used on Mew or Victini, you want to make your market moves, I would go ahead and make them now if you want to, of course. That is a prediction thing. There's no guarantee. Take your own risks financially. But all right, you did it. You watched an entire PokeMMO event preparation guide, and you didn't even need Subway Surfers playing in the bottom right corner. You should be well on your way to being fully prepared, or at least partially prepared for the upcoming event season in PokeMMO, and you will have a massive leg up on the competition and on the other players if you are prepared. I really hope you guys found this video helpful. That is the most important thing when it comes to guides like this. And if you did find it helpful and you want to let me know, make sure to leave a quick like on the video. It is tremendously helpful. And subscribe to the channel if you want to see PokeMMO videos every single day, as well as tons of new guides and updated content as the events release over the next 5 months or so. I also stream quite often, usually Monday through Thursday at 12 p.m. ET over on Twitch. I've been doing an Iron Man series, which is an account that cannot trade nor use the GTL, and I will be taking on the event season this year with that account. So there's a lot of extra restrictions at play, and that should be a lot of fun. I upload videos for that progress every single week on Sunday. My Discord is also linked down below, which is absolutely carried by the amazing community there of people who just love the game, as well as the moderators. My Discord is genuinely the best place, in my opinion, to get calls like Wisp or limited time things, alphas, phenos, etc. There's so much information in my Discord. It is generally such a fantastic tool for that purpose. Not trying to be biased. Obviously, I am inherently, but my Discord's a fantastic tool to play PokeMMO alongside. And not due to any good efforts of my own. It is honestly the community and the mods that make my Discord what it is. I'm just fortunate to be the person to luckily bring people together there. And speaking of bringing together and making all of this possible, thank you guys for watching. And if you want to go above and beyond, it is really the only way I'm able to do videos like this. These take a lot of time, a lot of years of experience, and a lot of notepad documents, scripting. If you want to go above and beyond and support me, allow me to make videos like this. YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, Twitch subs, PayPal, and Venmo donations are fantastic because they don't take as much of a cut like Twitch and YouTube do. And if you're sending me money, I don't want as much of it to go to waste as possible. And if you feel the same way, you can also hit up Factor, linked in the description, or whatever sponsorship I'm running. I usually have 1 or so sponsors every single month, and it's an ongoing collaboration with these companies, and I only take sponsorships from products that I actually believe in. I only accept about 1% of sponsors that I am offered. Honestly, because I'm just really bad at lying. I don't think I could tell you guys about a product if I didn't actually use it at times myself. Factor is a meal kit service where they ship you chef-made meals. You put them in your fridge, you pop them in the microwave, and you get delicious, nutritious. You can do high protein, you can do vegetarian or vegan, I believe, do very specific dietary restrictions or aim towards certain goals. I heavily recommend the smoky Gouda chicken or any of the salmon dishes if they have them active. I have used Factor even before I was sponsored. During things like Shiny Wars, if you are a super busy person, event season coming up, if you want to focus on PokeMMO, focus on Christmas shopping, your work, you're overwhelmed, you may not have time to cook all these different meals, especially when you might want to cook a Christmas dinner, maybe check out some Factor, replace a little bit of your grocery shopping budget with Factor. You'll save time, you'll save money, you'll save stress, you'll save trips to the grocery store, you'll save gas, dishes, and you'll get it all at 50% off. And that's where like the deal comes in. 50% off your first box is such an incredible deal. I think it's worth for everybody to try. And if you don't like it, let me know and let Factor know. And they're usually pretty responsive to feedback. I think they're a great company just trying to provide a good product for people who it fits their lifestyle, and that may not be for everybody, and I try to tell people that honestly. But with that 50% off discount on your first box, it is hard to go wrong. Check it out. Link will be in the description. There are also other sponsors that I take sometimes that are similar in nature that should be linked in the description. But that is everything. Thank you one last time for watching, and I hope your PokeMMO event season goes swimmingly. Have a fantastic day, but for now, peace Reno. Yo, what's up? Outro Patrouski here, and I wanted to take this time to say thank you to everyone who goes above and beyond and supports my channel. Your names are all listed here. You make it possible for me to make helpful and mildly entertaining content for the game that I love and make it available for free for everyone to enjoy. Thank you so much for allowing me to even be here.